Some of you may know that I love MMORPGs. Most of my childhood was spent cutting trees in RuneScape, slaying mushrooms in MapleStory, and wandering around and meeting new friends in Club Penguin. Okay, that one I'm a little embarrassed by. But with the change of technology and the new digital landscape of buying games, MMOs have slowly evolved. What started out as these simple yet addicting, grindy games became crazy HD online games with endless amounts of menus and notifications. Today I want to talk about the MMOs that I loved and how indie MMOs are bringing back the games that I loved so much as a kid. So equip your leather belts, ask your neighbor their woodcutting level, and let's get this show on the road. But first, a word from today's sponsor, GameMaker. If you've seen some of my past videos, you'll know that GameMaker was the first engine I ever used. Even back in the day with GameMaker 7, it was a fantastic engine. But the awesome news is it's got even better. GameMaker is the fastest and friendliest cross-platform game development technology. Whether you already create games on your own or if you're looking to start, GameMaker is the software for you. And the ridiculous part is there's been so many fantastic games made with GameMaker. Undertale, Wandersong, and even Downwell. Another amazing thing about GameMaker is it's an all-in-one piece of software. You don't have to be jumping around different things and tabs and windows. You can do everything you need to do in GameMaker. And with no barrier to entry and a powerful functionality, GameMaker Studio 2 is the ultimate 2D development environment. Now, if you're struggling to write code, don't worry. GameMaker has a drag and drop system that allows you to make games without ever having to code. And the drag and drop system is what I used to actually learn how to program as a kid. Another fantastic thing about GameMaker is the learning content. There are so many videos and tutorials out there and resources for you to learn to make your game that it really is a fantastic engine, especially if you're new to game dev. GameMaker also has a massive community on their forums, Discord, and Reddit. And not only will you be able to talk about your favorite games, but you'll also learn how to help others who share the same interest for game development as you do. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to talk about the engine that got me started in game dev. And if you're interested, start your free trial today and write some comments down about your favorite features, or if you have any questions, I would love to tell you. So check out GameMaker today. Now, before we talk about why I think indie MMOs are the future, I want to kind of clarify the type of MMO that I'm talking about. And a lot of times, it's not even an MMO. They're MOs, or they're these small online games and really fun experiences. And I just want to say that I have nothing wrong with modern MMOs. They're just a totally different genre and different style, and really not what I'm interested in playing for an online game. So let's get started. One of the first MMOs that I played the most is probably RuneScape. Now, if you're a kid in 2007, you were definitely playing this. You would go to the public library to use a computer if you didn't have one. You would try to steal your parents' laptop so you could play it on there. I remember being at a local coffee shop as a kid playing it on my dad's laptop and being bombarded by other kids asking me what my level was. RuneScape was just so popular. Everything from the weird simple graphics to the MIDIs and the strange screeching sound effects I loved. Even though the main mechanic of the game was clicking something and waiting, it was such a relaxing experience that honestly probably taught me some patience as a kid. And one other little fun fact is that the name Goodgis actually comes from one of the characters I made on RuneScape. So after playing this, I was obsessed with online games and was constantly looking for new ones. And it wasn't until my brother Keeyp found a game called Stick Online that one really stuck with me. Now, this is what I like to call the GameMaker era of indie online games, or MMOs. All of them were very similar. You had Stick Online, where you're these stick guys that just beat up monsters, and the only way to really get items is through rare drops. You could also buy them at the shop, but it was just all about just fighting monsters over and over again and getting rare drops. There weren't that many enemies in the game or weapons, but it just was so addicting. I can't explain it. There's just so much fun. There's tournaments. I just remember being so inspired that this game was made in GameMaker, something that I was using at the time. You also had other GameMaker games like Slime Online, which was kind of the same. It was a platformer as well, but there was no combat. You just were collecting these goo things. And then there was Scanducks, which was another one I played quite a bit, where you clicked and dragged your mouse to shoot arrows. It was really glitchy, but it was made by like a 13-year-old or something, and I was always so blown away. I'm like, if this kid can do it, I can do it too. One pattern I really started to notice from all these games that I loved was just a really grindy game that had rare drops that had a community, a really close-knit community that you can chat and kind of make friends and have it be super personable. Now, some other honorable mentions are definitely MapleStory. I played that quite a bit, but not as much as the other games. And also, don't hate me, but Club Penguin, which I played quite a bit and actually was a member for a short period of time. I also played Lotro and WoW at some point, and I really appreciate those games, but for totally different reasons than this list, so I'm just going to leave them off. So now that we talked about some of my favorite MMOs that I grew up playing, I want to talk about why I think they're good versus modern MMOs. And first and foremost, reason number one is the tight-knit player base. Now, really, you can have this with any MMO, but I find it's a lot rarer in the big AAA ones nowadays because people are just so busy doing their own stuff. In these classic MMOs, there really wasn't a whole lot to do other than grind and chat, so you were always very social and you're getting to meet new people and make friends, and it was awesome. Reason number two is a lot of these older MMOs focus on unique or weird gameplay, for better or for worse. Like I mentioned, Scandux had a click and drag arrow shooting system. It was very strange, I've never played a game quite like it, and it really made the game feel unique and different. There have been so many MMOs out there that it's always refreshing to find one that just feels so different and really changes up the gameplay and how you fight or interact with the world around you. Reason number three is close community interaction. You were able to actually talk with the devs and suggest improvements and changes, and they would be implemented. And even now in old school RuneScape, you can actually vote on new changes that you like to see added in the game. And I just think that's a really cool way to help improve the game that you love so much. And the fourth and final reason why I love these MMOs so much is that they focus on gameplay and not graphics. There's not all these flashing menus and things flying by. I can't tell you how annoying it is when you open up an MMO and MapleStory or something and you get 20 notifications and presents and people trying to chat with you and all this stuff. It's so distracting. I just want a game that I can jump straight into, I can start fighting. I don't want hand holding. I want to explore a world. I don't want tutorials and menus and all these fancy graphics getting in the way. I'm not saying that MMOs have to be ugly or simple, but sometimes overcomplicating things doesn't really add to the game. You're just padding it so people will stay there longer. So what does the future look like for MMOs or these indie MMOs that I'm talking about? Well, the awesome news is that making online games is easier than ever. I was able to make Fantasy World and Wizbirds using Construct 2. Now granted, it wasn't the best way to make it and we did have network problems, but who cares? I got to create a game that I actually really loved and really was passionate about. And that's why I think indie MMOs are so much fun, because a lot of times they're not about just trying to make money, they're just making fun experiences where you can play together with friends online. And there's games out there like Veleron, which is like a voxel-based game that kind of looks like Cube World, but it's completely open source and made by this awesome community. It's just so cool to see the new features they're constantly adding and improving upon. If you look back at the second video I ever uploaded on this channel, I talk about the two MMOs that I created and how they're inspired by a game called Stick Online. Well, another game that was inspired by it is called Agos, and it's another example of someone who's just making a game because they're passionate about it and they really love it. And I just think that's the best mentality when making these sorts of games. We need more indie MMOs that are made for the community, by the community. And I know I'm gonna get comments of people saying that, networking is the most difficult thing ever and you need a team, you need money and all this stuff. And that's true. There are costs, there are expenses, but there's so many talented people out there that it's just a shame that people aren't going out and trying to make these games. I don't care if it's horrible, it's glitchy, you can barely jump, you're still creating something, you're still creating an experience. Fantasy World, you could barely move in that game. It was so laggy, but yet we still had a community that loved it and supported it. And that just goes to show you that if you make something that has charm and passion in it, that people are gonna respect that and they wanna be a part of it. So I guess I want this video to be a challenge to you. If you're thinking about making an online game, go for it. Even if it doesn't get fully released, even if you only play it with your friends, there's something so wholesome and amazing about having those experiences that it's really hard to get with AAA crazy new MMOs nowadays. In my free time, I've been studying Godot's networking so that I could properly make the MMO that I've always wanted to, for you guys to enjoy and for us to enjoy together. Ultimately, it's up to us, the game dev community, to make fun experiences. And like I said, even if it turns out to be okay or weird, who cares? Do it because you're passionate about it and not because you're trying to get a bunch of people on with your crazy notifications and loot boxes. But I want to hear from you. What sort of MMO would you want to create? And what online games did you play as a kid? I also want to give a huge shout out to Buddy Games, Heath Sargent, James Kennedy, and Rybread, and the wonderful other Patreon supporters. You guys are fantastic, and I really appreciate the support. And thanks so much for watching. We have some special stuff planned, so stay tuned for that. And if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time for another game dev adventure.